Americans at work, making the machines that make nearly every item produced by American industry. Machinists following the trade behind all trades. The factory worker's factory worker. These workers are key craftsmen in our labor force, making up the largest occupational group in the metalworking trades. In our industrial civilization, machining is the most common method of producing metal parts in the variety of shapes and sizes required by the endless supply of consumer goods pouring from our factories. More than 1 million organized workers, union members, in this field alone are responsible for the building and maintenance of the goods and appliances that make modern life enjoyable. Name almost any product available, and somewhere it bears the stamp of the machinist. Machinery does more than release man from drudgery of hand labor. The world's work could no longer get done without machines. They turn out more and do it better than the greatest human giant who ever lived, or the biggest army of slaves ever assembled. The work of the machinist begins with masses of metal, small or large, the kind of metal determined by its use in the end product. As it comes to the worker, this metal has form, but he must give it function, make it into the gears, rods, wheels, an unlimited number of parts that do man's work. In shaping metal to his purpose, the machinist becomes the sculptor of industrial civilization. The machinist has altered the skyline of the world. He uses tools to make more tools, machines to make other machines, both ever more complicated to keep pace with man's conquest of Earth and of space, as atomic power plants become a familiar sight. The machinist works chiefly with power-driven machines that hold and bring together the piece of metal to be shaped and the shaping instrument. This sculptor of machinery uses different types of machine tools to work the metal to his design. In the lathe, a piece of metal while revolving on a spindle is cut to size by contact with a sharp metal cutting tool. The shaving tool operator shears any given piece of metal to hairbreadth dimensions. Grinding machines whittle away to reduce the metal to size. Power-driven abrasive wheels under the guidance of the machinist chip away unwanted particles at high speed to create a final precision product. A hollow tube made from a solid cylinder is polished with an internal grinder. Excess metal may be removed in any quantity at specified spots by an external grinder. Holes of any size, running in any direction desired by the operator, are made by the boring mill or the drilling machine. Accuracy is of prime importance. Machines, engines, and other metal products are made of separate parts, which must be made to precise dimensions by machining processes so that they can be easily assembled in mass production. The exact position and size of the hole must be right to minute fractions of 1/1000th of an inch. There can be no margin of error, no good enough, no almost perfect. The skilled machinist gets the most out of his machine tool by knowing how to select and use the right special attachment for the work at hand. He has to adjust feed and speed controls to each job. Often he must make adjustments and frequent changes in setup. It is important also for him to select the proper cooling method to keep both metal and tools from becoming too hot while he's working. The worker may move the cutting tool while the metal is held stationary, or move the metal against a stationary tool, depending on the job to be done. A vertical slaughter brings this piece of metal closer to its final shape and purpose. Step by step, one machinist after another plays his assigned role in carving an intricate, precise piece from a block of metal. Milling and broaching machines scrape and remove metal with multiple cutting-edge tools. The purpose in most of these processes is not to create one object of a kind, but to produce as many as possible exactly alike. Our technology depends upon the accuracy with which these men can manufacture interchangeable parts. This trade, like most trades, is divided into specialties. The all-round machinist is a skilled worker who can operate most types of machine tools. His training and experience enable him to plan and carry through all the operations needed in turning out a machine product, and to switch readily from one item to another. Even though the basic anatomy of the metal object may have been fashioned by lathes that cut, shave, and drill, a man's hand is needed to finish the work, using files and scrapers. The machinist must know the composition of metals, such as steel, cast iron, aluminum, and brass. The most highly skilled machining job is that of the tool and die makers, who make the tools and dies used in shaping and forming metal parts. They specialize in producing the jigs and fixtures, the devices required to hold metal while it is being shaved, stamped, or drilled. They also make gauges and other measuring devices needed in the manufacturing of precision metal parts. They construct the dies, which are forms for shaping metal by stamping and forging operations. They make devices for guiding drills into the metal and special gauges to determine whether the work measures up to specifications. This work is varied and complex, with high standards of perfection. These are the men who have the broadest knowledge of all machining operations, shop practices, mathematics, and blueprint reading. It is men like this who truly make the shape of things to come in factories, offices, homes, and places of recreation, on the road, on rails, on the sea, and in the air. The specialist in this field is able to experience the satisfaction which comes to a capable and conscientious craftsman in a highly skilled trade. Setup and layout men adjust machine tools so that semi-skilled operators can run the machines. They install cutting tools and adjust controls. They explain the operations to be performed and show how machining accuracy can be checked. These men must be trained in the operation of several machine tools. Each man may be assigned to a number of them at one time. If necessary, the setup man makes trial runs and adjusts the machine until the parts produced conform to specifications. Before you can have a single modern convenience, the unit that heats, cools, and air conditions where you live, work, and play, the instrument that heals, the vehicle that carries you from place to place, the mechanical brain that calculates your profits and losses, each must first exist in the mind of a man, be put down on paper for translation into metal. The layout man will mark directions on metal to indicate to the machine tool operator the kind of machining to be done. He must be familiar with the operation and uses of all standard machine tools. The design for the ultimate form and function of unworked metal begins with the tools of a sculptor. A center punch, indicating a point to be drilled. A scriber, marking an area to be machined. Working from drawings and blueprints, the layout and setup men determine feeds, speeds, and tooling sequences, and adjust guides, stops, and other controls accordingly. If it were not for men who know how to do this, we would not move from miracle to miracle in this age of daily miracles. They say it takes a 4-year apprenticeship to learn the machinist trade, but this depends upon the individual and the job he's qualifying for. Most have a high school or trade school education. Mechanical ability, finger dexterity, and a liking for painstaking work are musts for the would-be machinist. The training period may vary from 1.5 years for the machine tool operator to 10 years for the layout man. The all-round machinist must spend 8,000 hours of his life in shop training, 576 hours in the classroom. The tool and die man must spend more time to become proficient in the most exacting metal machining job. The subjects become more difficult. Mastery of hand tools such as scrapers and files, ability to understand and apply shop mathematics, shop theory, and tool designing, all learned by on-the-job training. What it adds up to is that machinists provide ground truths to keep planes in the air. They keep passenger cars and trucks rolling down the highway. They keep railroad locomotives on the rails. And ships on the seas. They make it possible for other industries to keep us well fed. Well housed. And well clothed. Machinists keep production going in industries ranging from breweries to univacs. Every machine designed, made, assembled, and maintained requires machinists. Behind every mechanism and every tool is a machine tool worker. There has never been developed a machine that could think for itself. Without men, the machine produces nothing. These organized workers of the AFL-CIO, the International Association of Machinists, machine tool operators, tool and die makers, layout and setup men, and maintenance people, Americans at work, make the world go round for you. Americans at Work, presented as a public service by the AFL-CIO. Next week, another interesting story of Americans at work. Americans whose skill and effort help keep our country great and strong.